Okay, so in this video, we're going to start talking about marketing. It is a very big topic, and if you are a self-published author, then that means you're going to have to start telling people about your book at some point. It actually makes sense right when you start watching this video. It will make sense for you to consider what you might be sharing now, even before your book is available, about the process. And even if you're already through the process, even if, we're already working on creating your book cover, we're already working on the layout of your manuscript, start kind of reverse engineering, going backwards a little bit and sharing about the fact that you are writing a book and what it's going to be about, just so that you're peppering information about the book coming into your existing platforms, wherever you have marketing available at the moment. And then, of course, we're going to talk about a little more in detail about where you might put some efforts moving forward to tell people about your book. Now, it's key to remember here that marketing is a little different from selling. It's actually quite different from selling. You need to start building a platform from the ground up foundationally to help the right readers connect to your material. So, not everybody is a great candidate for your book. It's really easy to think that everyone in the world could potentially be a customer of your book, which may be true. But if you try to talk to everybody and make your content palatable for everybody, you're going to miss everybody because you're essentially speaking to nobody. So when you try to speak to all people, nobody can identify that that book might be for them. If somebody posts, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, and it's just a general book that's about people, how do I know it's a book that I would like to read that's about people? Is it about mothers? Is it about certain experiences? Is it about people who have certain traits or qualities? Who is it for particularly? Because if you can identify that and then share about the content of your book, the purpose of your book, the experience, the outcomes, the results that people can get through using your book, your workbook, or even the parents of children, a children's book that you're writing, we need to make sure we're identifying who the book is for so that we can then speak directly to those people. And that allows you to become more like the big entity, the big fish in a small pond of people who can really easily identify that, oh, there's that fish right there, versus a very small fish in a massive pond that is not as noticeable, right? Or it's like birds sitting on a wire. If there's 100 birds on a wire, you're not going to notice any one single bird. But if there's one or two birds on a wire, you can more easily see those individual birds. So it's almost like less is more. We want to pull back what we're saying and what we're talking about our book to really niche specific areas so that we don't try to be on every platform, try to talk to every person. We're trying to identify who we're speaking to and share what our message is about. And the marketing of your book is kind of in two phases. The first one is going to be when you are first launching your book. So this may include the pre-publish information about the process, information about details on the book, trying to generate some awareness for the book coming, and then bleeds into your book actually launching, which is a celebratory time. It's a kickoff phase. It's right when your book is now on Amazon, and you might be telling every single person under the sun, your friends, your family members, the people in your direct network. They may not even be the ideal readers of your book, but they're probably excited for you, especially if you're a first-time author and or being a self-published author. Those people aren't your ideal readers, but they're probably going to support you during the launch, which can help make your initial launch successful. These are people you can already lean on, even if you don't have any established platforms and you're starting from zero and building your author platform from the ground up. And then you're going to move into the ongoing marketing, which is phase two, which is really trying to target what you're saying to the right people, because it's really not going to matter if the wrong people buy your book, because they're not going to have as much impact. They're not going to tell other people about your book. They're not going to share about the experience they had reading your book or using your workbook or enjoying your children's book. They're not going to share. They're not going to be apt to tell people and really, leave reviews or do, if they're not the right people for your book. It's sort of like, I'd rather sell 2 books to the exact right people than sell 20 books to people who aren't even going to read it. And then we'll have nothing else nice to say about it because it's not going to help you in the long term. So in this video, I would like to give you a bit of a surface level overview of marketing and give you some ideas for what you can do with where you're at now and some plans for the future, because marketing is a long game and it's kind of an art, not a science. It's not a perfect system that you just follow and check all the boxes and you'll be guaranteed success. It is ongoing. It is celebratory in the beginning, but I don't want you placing all your eggs in just your book launch basket. The book launch should be celebratory. And in fact, I encourage you to pick a day that you're going to really go and be really, really excited about your book launching on that particular day. And perhaps you have some goals. Maybe you'd like to see 20 sales or 40 sales or 100 sales on that day, depending on the audience you already have. But I don't want you thinking that if the launch day or the kickoff day is not, you don't sell thousands of books that day, that it is a failure, because it's really not. It's just the first time you're starting to share about your book. So I don't want you to put all your expectations on the first phase, the launch phase. I want you to think about how you're going to start marketing and continue to market your book moving forward and ongoing. So we're going to talk about both of those things. If I can make you think a little bit differently about the marketing phase, because especially when you're a self-published author, we really think about writing the content and getting to the place where we actually are holding this book in our hands. But a lot of us are not marketing experts. A lot of us forget about the fact that we have to tell people about our books once they're published. And there's so many different ways that you can do this. And I want you to know that there's so many ways that are accessible and available to us now versus, 10, 15, 20 years ago. If you happen to figure out how to self-publish and you printed your own books and your own inventory and you were selling them on your own, it really was not as accessible as it is today. We have the opportunity and the privilege to utilize and leverage social media, digital media marketing, as well as traditional sources of marketing if it makes sense for you. So I want you to be grateful and excited about the process of going through this, creating an author platform, sharing the message about your book, and being able to tell people with a lot less effort, to be honest. Yes, there's effort required in, creating social media posts and putting content out there, but it's way more accessible than it used to be. So let's go into it with that mindset or perspective. Marketing is an important part of successful self-publishing. Unless you have the budget to invest in a full-on marketing firm that is going to do all of the work for you, which a lot of us do not have, you can take an active role in your marketing. And by utilizing the best techniques specifically for you, and that's going to be based on your preferences as well as where your ideal reader might be spending their time, you have to decide where you're going to spend your time and energy to get the word out. And I want you to know that it may start slow, but we want to continue to build that into a steady base of activities that you're going to do to continue telling people and the right people about your book. As I already mentioned, it is an art, not a science. And this is kind of part of the process where you get to have fun. You get to test out different strategies. You get to try, test again, try again, fail, succeed, try, and try to enjoy the process instead of attaching yourself to what you think a successful outcome is, because you just never know who's going to pick up your book, read it, love it, pass it on to a friend, and then that friend has a podcast and wants to invite you to speak on it, or that friend has a YouTube channel and they want you to be part of it, or their friend is a book reviewer and they're going to review your book for you. There's so many different ways that your message about your book can get across, and you don't have to follow one specific one-size-fits-all approach. You get to have fun with it and hopefully enjoy the process, because if you want to create sales of your book, even if it starts small and builds to more later, you are going to have to talk about it. So we're going to start with where you're at. As I already mentioned, the first phase when you consider marketing is your book's launch. In the kickoff phase, this is where you're going to introduce people and potentially people in your personal network at this moment, even though we're going to work on your ideal reader. People in your existing network. This could be anyone who's on your personal Facebook page or on your personal Instagram account if you haven't decided to go public with it yet. This is anyone who's your friend and family member. This could be your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your siblings, your, friends in the teacher drop-off line, anyone who is in your immediate circle who is probably going to support you during your book's launch phase. During the launch phase, a lot of authors really want to drive for a bestseller campaign on Amazon, which is a great goal to have and something to work towards. It's not the be all end all, but it's definitely cool to get your book ranking on that list. When it's in the top 100, especially in the top 50 in any of Amazon's categories that your book is correctly placed in, this can be helpful in the future because it's going to help with your search optimization of your book. If more people are seeing it, if it's ranking higher on the list, the chances are if someone types in a keyword associated with your book or the category associated with your book, if it's ranking higher, the likelihood of people seeing it, just even by chance, is going to be better. So getting a bestseller campaign is not just a vanity metric, although it is a cool thing to share and you could share in your marketing later that you hit number 1 or number 7 or number 12, whatever. Or just saying without the number, saying you're a best-selling author on Amazon is a really cool thing to do and a milestone you may want to strive for. But in addition to ranking being positioning you a little bit higher on that list for people to almost stumble upon you, you can also ask these people who are in your immediate circle, your network of people, maybe make a list of 50 people who you know you can tell on that launch day, whatever the day is you're celebrating the first, phase kickoff of your book launch. Those people will purchase the book from you, even if they're not your ideal client. This can get the ball rolling, but they aren't your ideal readers. Those aren't the ideal people who you want to come across your book. So we still have some work to do even after the launch phase. I do think it's important, though, for you to know that leveraging your existing network and having those people close to you support you during that launch day or the couple days that you're really celebrating the kickoff of your book, that can help you to start and come out of the gate strong. It's also a good idea to manage expectations during this phase and take a good hard look or an audit, if you will, at the people in your existing network as well as the people in your social media, like digital network, and consider how many copies being sold for your bestseller campaign over a period of 1 to 2 days, if you can, because that's how you rank, is a surge of orders over a particular couple of days. Who can you get to help you with that during those first couple of days? Who can you lean on who are going to purchase your book no matter what? And I think that is a good way to start getting comfortable with sharing the word about your book, but you need to know that these are probably not always going to be your ideal readers. Using myself as an example, the very first product I ever self-published was a self-love journal specifically for moms. And I told everyone in my network about this. I was very excited for the first book that I was launching, the first time I ever went live and had a product on Amazon. And everyone I knew was so supportive. I shared personally, just really authentically on Facebook mostly, and shared that the book was coming and shared that the book was live. And I know for a fact there were people like my dad, my uncle, my brother-in-law, my husband, men who are not moms and not women and not my ideal client helped during this phase because they supported me in purchasing the book. So you have to understand that there's a difference between those really supportive people who are going to buy probably no matter what. And like I said, maybe make a list of 30 or 40 or 50 people who you know can help you with that, but they are not your target audience. They are your warm network that you already have who can be helpful and you can lean on them to support you. But then we have to think about the bigger picture. Who is your book actually for, and how can we get it in front of those people's eyes? Because that's going to help long term. We don't want to just have this quick little win at the start where you rank as a number 2 or number 5 bestseller or number 1 bestseller, and then nothing happens after that. We have to be mindful of the people who your book is for. And that's sort of where phase 2, your ongoing marketing, comes in. So let's get a little bit deeper into some important questions as we're thinking about marketing and spreading the word about our book. So the first 3 things that I want you to think about are who, where, and what. The who in this equation is a few things. Who is your target reader? Who do you picture reading your book? And so then who will your marketing be directed to? If your book is for women, niche that down even further and really try to identify the types of women, the types of identifying women that this book is for. If your book is for moms, if your book is for teachers, if your book is for the fitness enthusiast, if your book is for parents, you really have to identify who this person is. In a lot of cases, especially if you're writing nonfiction, this could be you 5 years ago, because maybe you've written something that's helping the version of you. That's often what happens is we start healing and learning and growing, especially in nonfiction. And then we may have this resource that you would have needed 5 years ago and you would have purchased 5 years ago. So think about who that person is. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is you and that you would be a target reader, but that may start to get some ideas generating. We need to be really clear on who this person is. And I am going to ask you to actually write a few things down about at the end in the homework about this target reader and get really clear and specific on who it is so that you can direct your marketing to that person who's the ideal reader. So who do you picture reading your book? Who will your marketing be directed to? Okay. And then we get into where, and the questions I want you to ask here are, Where does your target reader spend their time already? So if we're talking about social media platforms, are they on Instagram? Are they on Twitter? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Pinterest? You aren't going to be able to be active on every single social media platform. I actually suggest that you pick just one, and you pick one that you're already familiar with, and that you can maybe explore different trends and pay attention to what's trending at the moment in terms of visibility and algorithms. Please do not try to spend time on every different platform and repurpose content to every different platform. You're going to spread yourself too thin. You're going to try to be everywhere and you're going to end up being nowhere. So pick a platform. Research, market research, type into Google, where do women who are moms of young toddlers spend their time primarily on social media? Or Google the demographics of different social media platforms. Use the resources you have available to do some market research and find out. Look on your own social media if you already have a few people there. What is your, primary demographic of people who are even following you on your account? Look into different platforms, especially the ones you already are on, and decide where it makes the most sense for you to then spend your time. So where are you already actively participating, and where else would you like to be present if there is anywhere else you'd like to be present? Don't overcomplicate things. If you're on Instagram all the time, that's where you spend most of your time, please do not try to use Twitter suddenly with no following there and no idea what best practices are as a brand new platform. Lean into what you know and what makes sense for your target reader and where they're spending their time. Okay, and then what? What kind or type of content can you create and what makes sense at the moment? And by this, I mean, are static posts on Instagram the best use of your time if video content is what's being prioritized? Again, Google, research, look up current social media trends and see what is the king of content at the moment. At this very moment in 2023, it is video content. I would rather see you produce, if you're on Instagram, 5 reels a week, even with B-roll content of you typing at your computer with some quote or something over top, then I would like to see you posting a static post, because you're just not going to, it's not going to get in front of the right people. It's not going to be seen by nearly as many people. So that's what I mean by what makes sense at the moment. But you have to research this, because this could be a year from now and maybe video is not the thing that everybody is into. So see what makes sense at the moment. What are the outcomes or results that your ideal reader can get through reading your book? So we need to be very clear about, what does your book provide? If you've written a book about spirituality and healing through spirituality, what are you sharing inside your book that is going to help the person reading your book? And how can you communicate that in your content? Because we don't want our content to just be pictures of the book, videos of the book, buy my book, here's my book, get my book. You actually want to work on creating value and building this sort of relationship between the people that are in your audience and provide them with something. Yes, ideally, you would love for them to buy your book. And that is the end goal, right? Of marketing. You'd like it to convert into a sale of some point, which would ideally mean purchasing your book, which would be great. But sometimes laying the foundation means building relationships, connecting with people, and they may need to see you and your value and maybe your entertainment or your humor or whatever you're providing via social media, them getting to know you. They might have to see your content a few times before they make a decision, even to buy a $20 or a $25 book. But the more they see you and get to know you, and the more you're sharing benefits and outcomes and results, and you're talking within a few different containers of information based on your ideal client. So again, if I'm women and moms, what could I talk about? I could talk about parenting. I could talk about the busyness of the motherhood lifestyle. I could talk about myself and my own parenting moments. Create a few different buckets or pillars of things you can talk about so that you can connect to similar and like-minded people who would then in turn be ideal readers of your book. Hopefully this is all making sense. And at the moment, it's just probably going to give you some ideas, or just create some ideation and idea generation in your mind. You may not be taking action necessarily just yet, but I want you to open up your eyes and just pay attention to what makes sense for you right now. What can you focus on? And what are some ideas you might want to focus on later, so that you don't get too overwhelmed, because it can be pretty overwhelming as we get into marketing. The last section here on the what topic is, what are you going to ask people to do? So I'm going to get into this a little more when I talk about your author platform, because your author platform is not just your social media platforms. We actually want to have a platform like a website that you own, where you could start building people into your community via email, collecting emails for something that you might give them in return for free, which is often called a lead magnet. So is there supplementary information that you could create? Maybe making a downloadable PDF of something bonus that goes alongside the content of your book or is related to the content of your book, so that you can start telling people about that as well and having them come into your world via your email list, because then you own your email list. Because Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Twitter could literally be shut down tomorrow. And if that's the only place where you're sharing content and the only place where you have anything of value, it's going to be just really difficult for you to come to terms with it. So we want to focus on somewhere that your information can live, and then using social media platforms, just because that's a really easy thing to do and it's available to everyone and it's free, to generate people to come into your world, perhaps take action on something by getting a free download. And then maybe you're sharing content via an e-newsletter. These are all great strategies to start building that value and positioning yourself as an expert. And I know, take a deep breath. I know this sounds like, wow, it's a lot of work, but you don't have to do everything at once. Essentially, you could just start posting on social media, getting comfortable with that while you work on finding a way to have a one-page author website that talks about the book. We're going to take this one step at a time. Just as it pertains to marketing versus selling, I want you to know that marketing is kind of the long game, the thing where you're getting, making people aware of your product, which is your book, educating about the benefits of buying it so that maybe after 5 or 10 posts later, they're going to actually take action and purchase your book. You're sharing relatable or related content to your topic of your book, but like relatable content, meaning how can you relate to and connect to the people who are your target readers so that they see your posts on social media and they in their head or out loud, they're going, yes, that's me. That's a relatable content. Again, with the motherhood example, sharing something personal about your motherhood experience is really going to help the mothers out there to self-identify that what you're saying is about them and they've experienced that too, and know that you're talking to them versus scrolling past a post and not having a clue if it's for you or not. So having them identify that it's for them, that's relatable content. And then building an audience with a strong foundation. So you might have nobody in your audience right now, but you do want to start attracting the right people. And even if that's a slow process, I'd rather you start attracting the right people, the target audience people, than just any old person who comes across you. And giving them a reason to actually stick around and pay attention is how you're going to keep them. And that's with providing value. And then lastly, you can let people just get to know you and show your personality, show your humor, do things that are going to let people understand you as the author, because that's going to likely get them more interested in what it is that you're talking about when it comes time to you saying, oh, I actually have a book. You could purchase it. Marketing comes with a very giving or value added energy. And as you're going to see when I talk about selling, it's a little bit more of a selfish or receiving energy if not done correctly. So you want to start with marketing, and obviously the goal is going to become selling. But if you were to look at an Instagram feed, for example, where you show up to someone's page and there's 9 posts there that you can see right away, I don't want your 9 posts to just be buy my book, 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 buy my book. That is not going to translate into sales, because people don't like being told, go get this because I said so. They want to feel like they're part of it. They want to feel like they've made the decision to buy it. So we don't want to just tell people to buy our book. We actually want to work on the marketing part over time so that they become people who are purchasing your book from you. And I know that that is a little frustrating because we want this instant, here's my book, go buy it, but it takes a little bit more work than that. So in selling, this is really just telling people, go buy your product, your book. You're not showing care or value add to your potential buyers. You're just asking them to purchase something from you because why wouldn't they? Go and buy this from me because I wrote it. That's not really a reason. If this is attempted to your kind of cold audience without warming them up or without attracting people by using marketing, value adding, letting people get to know you, it won't resonate or convert to anything as well. You might get a small amount of success, but this is a little bit more of a selfish or a receiving energy where you're like, my book, this is what I wrote, buy this from me, 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 me. And we don't want to have that. We want to show that we care about the people and that we wrote this book for the people that are in our target audience, our ideal readers. And we don't want them thinking that all we care about is that they just buy the book and that's it. We actually care a lot more about them, or we should care a lot more about them. So try to be living in this giving energy, value add energy, letting people get to know you energy, letting people know what your book is about, why you wrote it, how it's going to help them. Because most people are selfish, which is not a bad thing, but Most people that you're speaking to, they want to know what's in it for them. So through marketing, you're going to communicate what's in it for them, and you're going to build your value add over time so that you can get people converting into actually purchasing the book. Okay, so when we talk about building an author platform, the first thing that I alluded to earlier is that you don't own social media. So I don't want you to only focus on social media. It is a tool, and it is a tool that you absolutely should incorporate and implement into your marketing strategy because it's available, it's free, and why wouldn't you? It's a smart thing to do. But I want you to pick 1 to 2 social media platforms. That could be Facebook and Instagram. That could be Facebook and TikTok, Twitter and Facebook, like whatever social media platforms where you're comfortable with them already. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel. And where can you start dripping some content about the book that's coming, the process of writing the book, your why, who you are, the reason you created this amazing resource for your ideal target people. And this is where you can start to get, it's almost like awareness content, because someone who comes across you on social media may not necessarily just easily translate into a buyer. But if they do follow you, they can get to know you. Perhaps they're going to listen to a call to action that you give them. Maybe that means going to your author website and getting a freebie, or just connecting with you in some way. And we want to utilize social media to spread the word about what it is that you have created. And again, value add content, letting people get to know you and what your book is about and why you wrote it, the background story, the results and outcomes people can expect to get from your book, and also sharing aligned content that makes sense. So motherhood book, I might share about something that happened that was funny in motherhood, just to continue people's understanding that I am talking about motherhood, talking about motherhood, talking about motherhood. And then maybe on that 7th time they see me, they're like, oh, she has a book. That's cool. Maybe I'll buy the book. So again, it's awareness, generating engagement, and connecting with people and creating relationships with people. But you only need to do that through 1 to 2 social media platforms. I would highly recommend that you set up an author website or a page on your existing website, if you already have a website, somewhere that is actually your real estate or your corner of the internet, as some people would say, where you can post a synopsis of your book, information on your book. Once your book is on Amazon, you can actually just have a button there that says buy my book, and it just takes them to the Amazon page, has more information about you, can have a search engine optimized language, can have keywords and phrases on that page that hopefully people are going to, if it's done well, come to your site because you've mentioned now information about kind of the topics that are you've written about inside your book. These are just strategic things that you can do on your website. But I'd highly recommend that you get one, even if it's just a 1-page website, to keep information about you as an author. This can help with your credibility, especially if you wanted to get into opportunities of, speaking or getting asked to come on or approaching podcasts so that you can do interviews on podcasts that align with your book and your the topics that you talk about in your book. Somewhere for people to go to get more information, to contact you with a nice headshot of you and an author bio and something that shows your professionalism. If you plan to build a leg of your business or to leverage yourself as an expert, especially if you've written a work of nonfiction, you need somewhere that is yours, that you own, that couldn't just be taken away from you at any moment's notice, like social media could. To be honest, it could. So having an author website, even if it's just a simple landing page, which you can create on places like MailChimp or Typeform, or you can look up things like Thrivecart or Lead Pages. These are all places you can investigate. And yes, they may come with a fee that you need to pay in order to access their templates or their platforms, but it is well worth the investment to have somewhere that your content can live, that your book can always be, that can be search engine optimized, that has a nice biography of you and a photo and maybe some photos of the book. It is really smart to do that and also have that set up in some way where you can collect emails to either get people on a newsletter as a very ambiguous first step, or preferably have a download, an additional PDF, a resource, something else that you can share with people that will give you will give in exchange for their email, because then you start building an email list, which may sound sort of archaic in the grand scheme of marketing, A lot of people think that email lists aren't where it's at, but it is really smart to start building this community of people who you know are interested. And then once in a while, you can tell them that either Amazon's having a sale, your book's on sale, or it's Mother's Day and my book is all about motherhood. So grab a book for your mom or for a mom in your life. All of these things can be utilized, but you have to first start somewhere, and having either a newsletter or a free download are two great places that you could begin. And you can be using the social media platform of choice to tell people about the free thing that you have to download, how to access it, where, the link is, whether it's in your Instagram profile or wherever, to get this additional value add. And now you're bringing them into your space to communicate with them later via your email list. Hopefully that makes sense. So an author website or an existing page on your existing website specifically for your book. And then another thing that you can do is begin researching other marketing methods and strategies based on your preferences and where your ideal reader is likely to hang out. So social media, yes, we know we're going to probably post content there. On an author website, it would also be great to create blog posts. And again, you can use social media to drive people back to your blog posts. In your blog post, there could be access to that free download that you're talking about, the one thing that is a value add additional content that goes alongside your book, or you could literally be driving people to your book through your blog post. So they all kind of work together. But researching other marketing methods, this is really going to be unique to you. There are a lot of other ways that you can do marketing. There's also the opportunity to explore advertising, which traditionally can be part of marketing, but advertising is generally something you would invest in, you would pay for. But there are other opportunities outside of only social media, and you really have to know yourself as well as your ideal reader to decide which one of those would make the most sense for you, because not all of them are going to make sense for you. So for example, does it make sense to investigate PR opportunities, maybe looking into a PR company or somebody who does media relations specifically for authors? Look for local people in your area. See if there are opportunities, if that makes sense for you. Maybe it doesn't make sense for you. And if that's the case, nix that idea. None of these are mandatory. Does it make sense for you to go to local vendor shows in your town or city or your nearest closest big town or city? Do they have occasional quarterly season specific shows? Is there a mom and baby show that would make sense for you? Is there a garden show? Is there a women's show? Is there something that you could go to and potentially investigate setting up a booth to get more exposure onto your brand and potentially to even just sell books? Is there a topic specific vendor show, big or small, that would make sense for you? Maybe investigate the small ones first and test that out and see if you like spending 6 to 8 hours on your feet chatting with people, selling books and passing out business cards and getting people's names on your email list. See if that's something you would like to do. If you're not a person who likes that, if that would drain you and you don't think you'd have fun, then nix that idea. That's maybe not for you then. Does it make sense for you to set up wholesale partnerships at local bookstores? Would it make sense for you to go into, the downtown of your hometown and speak with stores who either carry products where your book would fit in well? It doesn't have to just be a bookstore, but products, and or if it is a local bookstore, are they willing to have you on consignment, have your book there on consignment as a featured local author? Does that make sense or does it not make sense? You have to decide if these things make sense for you or not. Would it be helpful to set up a book signing or event? If you move forward and decide to set up in the future third-party distribution, it's possible that you could even have book signing events set up at big chain stores like Indigo if you're in Canada. Or you can connect, obviously making connections and building relationships with local business owners in your town is really going to make a lot of sense. And again, planting seeds and building foundation is going to be really helpful. Don't just walk into a store and never meet the owner and just say, "Hi, I have a book. Can I sell it here?" Meet the owner, tell them about your book, come back to the store a few times. I know this sounds like it is a lot of work, but it's literally a planting seed process and a building foundation process. If you don't already have these relationships, it's really going to help you in the long run to work on building relationships. As I said, that's what marketing is all about. Would it make sense for you to create a media kit for podcasts so that you can send this to aligned podcast hosts who host shows around similar topics where they have a primary demographic of people who are listening to their show, that perhaps you could speak about something inside your book and offer something free for all the people who are listening? Would that make sense for you or not? Would it make sense to find book reviewers Would it make sense to find influencers and utilize influencer marketing, whether that is a big influencer, which I actually wouldn't recommend as much as I would recommend aligned micro influencers? So, are there people who, again, you're starting to build relationships with who you could reach out to and say, hey, I have this book. I think it would be beneficial and that you'd really like it. I'm working on getting the word out about my book. Would you be willing to take my book as a gift and to share it with your audience if it resonates with you? You can create an offer for them if you want, or you can just offer to gift the book. Not everyone will say yes to this, but if it makes sense for your niche and for your target demographic, and the person you reach out to is a target reader, an ideal reader, and you've created this relationship, it's easier to make an ask like that and offer to gift your book to somebody than if you just come across someone searching them on Google and then just cold reaching out to them and asking to send a book. So relationship building is going to be really important here. Does it make sense to look into and potentially invest in social media advertising? So that could be Facebook ads, Instagram, boosted posts. Does it make sense or not? Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you're not ready for that. So you're just going to use organic marketing by posting your own social account, social content. Would it make sense to look into Amazon ads or YouTube sponsorships? If there's an ideal reader of yours who you think, talks about books of the same nonfiction topic all the time on YouTube, and you're subscribing to them and you're connecting with them, does it make sense to maybe ask about if they have YouTube sponsorships where they can reference you and your book as today's sponsor on an upcoming episode? Does it make sense to gift to, I already put this in here, sorry, gifting to aligned micro influencers. I moved it up here. So these are all just idea generating, methods. You may not want to work with all of these ideas. You may not like all of these ideas, but by no means does marketing stop at just, I'm going to post to social media and cross my fingers, because there's way more that you can do in terms of marketing, and way more than even I have mentioned here. I've literally just scratched the surface. So know that there are other opportunities. If this is leaving you feeling overwhelmed, then maybe just start with setting up, if you have no social account, set up a social account for your author profile and investigate getting a website made for something that you do in the future. And it doesn't all have to be done at once. Hopefully, this has opened your eyes a little bit to the overall concept of marketing, the fact that you're going to start with your phase one, which is your kickoff or your book launch, and that the people in that phase who are purchasing may just be supporters that are your OG people, and they may not be essentially your ideal person who you hope will stumble across your book and become a reader. However, they can be helpful in the beginning. And then as you move into phase two, really thinking about your ideal reader, making a plan to speak directly to your ideal reader, creating and getting comfortable trying different types of content that have to do with your topics and the topics that your book references, and creating relationships and value-added content so that people warm up to you first, even though they might not buy right away. These are all things I want you to consider. And it's tip of the iceberg at this point, but there are so many different strategies and methods that you can explore as you get comfortable with the last thing that you were working on. So once you have one social profile and you're comfortable posting and you're posting frequently, and you're starting to chat with people and ask them to message you in your DMs, and you're starting to get to know people in your community and they're responding and leaving comments on your posts, then you can move on to going, okay, I think I'm going to look into making my author website now so that I can also tell the people I'm engaging and connecting with to have this, access my newsletter. And maybe that's the first thing you do. You don't even have a freebie yet. You can ask them to join your newsletter, and then you're going to create content on your newsletter. Or on your website, you just start creating aligned blog posts that talk about similar topics. I know you can feel a little bit like you're just saying the same things over and over again, but sales psychology will tell us people have to see things over and over and over, sometimes 8 or 10 or 15 times before they'd make a decision to buy something. So you may start to get a little bit repetitive, but if you're talking about the same types of topics, you're going to attract those people that are interested in those topics. And those topics are probably the ones that are inside your book. So reverse engineering the finished product that you have of your book, and how can you create content that talks about the things that are inside your book so that hopefully people buy your book later. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So homework, just to start off, there's a ton of things that you could do after watching this. There are a ton of actions that you could take. If nothing else, I just want you to have a basic understanding of how marketing can begin for you. You don't have to take any action at this moment, but I want you to start getting some ideas working. And I want you to make a decision on a social profile that you can and will utilize based on where your ideal client shows up and where you're comfortable. So if you know your ideal reader shows up on TikTok and Instagram, but you don't have a TikTok account, then just focus on Instagram. So you have to make a decision on at least one social profile. I'll get to that in the next page, but the first thing I want you to do is understand your target reader. So make a profile, maybe even find a picture or use a picture of a friend of yours, give them a name, and make an exhaustive list of this person who is your target reader. Now, there's probably a multitude of different people who could potentially be an ideal reader of your book, but I want you to name this person. Name the person, create an image of the person and what they kind of look like, and even write down on a full page, what is the person like? What are their hobbies? Where do they spend their time? What do they do for work? What do they do for fun? Are they in a relationship? Do they have kids? What are they struggling with? This could also be called pain points. So once you know them and you've gotten to know them, and again, you could take inspo from you 5 years ago if you wrote a book that basically would have been for your own self 5 years ago. What are they struggling with that your book is the solution to? Make an exhaustive list, create a name, and make sure that you are very clear on your ideal or your target reader. So you're almost making an avatar of this person. Create an author website. So again, this and the next step is a social platform. So you can do one or the other first. Create an author website or a page on your existing website where your book and you as an author can live. And we are putting yourself on this platform so that people know where to look for more information on you. And it does help with credibility when you have either yourname.com or your business, and then there's a page on it that says the book or, author or something that gives them more details on you as an author. Helps elevate your author presence even further. And as I said, is something that you will own, and it's your little piece of real estate on the internet where people can get more information and you own the content that's there, and you can drive people to it and then link things like, email lists and free downloads and things like that to build your email list. Look into sites like Wix or Squarespace to create a user-friendly website, and then create content here. Again, this could be something you're not doing just yet, but you plan to do because you know it's important. And this content can link people back from, you're creating a blog, let's say, and then maybe you do a social post on your social media platform that says, I just wrote a blog and it's all about this, and here's where you can go to read it. And then inside the blog, maybe there's a link for them to either purchase the book or get your free download or join your newsletter. So this is where you can use the content, the core content that you own on your website, and revert people from social media to come to your website. So that's like one strategy for building people and getting them hopefully on your email list or purchasing a book or downloading your free resource. Come up with an additional or bonus resource people can access for free in exchange for their email. You can use something like Canva and come up with, search their templates for PDF downloads and create something that you customize that is, if your book is on motherhood, like 10 ways to reduce stress in motherhood, or some type of checklist or some sort of bonus guide or material that you can create that is another value add that people download in exchange for their email list, also called a lead magnet. I already mentioned this, so pick a social platform. Don't try to learn brand new ones or do 17 different social media platforms at once. Work on building a community in one place where you're comfortable and where your target reader lives, even if you're starting at zero. So you could make a brand new, fresh Instagram account if you want, or you can use your existing personal Instagram account and start putting, change it to public and start putting your content there from that account that you already have. So that'll start with friends and family and then ideally grow into people who actually want to hear about the content that you're talking about. Create content that drives people to a specific call to action. So that could be download your accompanying resource. And also it sometimes could be just to buy your book. But I don't want you to focus on that call to action. I want you to focus on building relationships and sharing value-added content and then leading them slowly over time to buy your book. It's going to come over time. And then the last two things are start sharing. What you share via your website, through blogs, social media posts, content, whatever, is not going to be amazing when you start. In fact, it's probably going to suck at the start. But if you don't start, it's never going to get amazing. Nobody's incredible at the guitar when they first do that first strum on the chords and they're just watching a YouTube video to try to figure out how to play the guitar. You're going to suck probably at first, but you sort of have to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what works. See where you're comfortable creating content. Are you going to use something like Canva, as I mentioned, to create some graphics or some cover pages for your reels? Are you going to test doing a reel, maybe of B-roll, maybe of, the book on a table, maybe of, something motherhood related, if that's the niche that you're in, and then putting a trending sound over top of it? And are you going to try doing face to camera and sharing tips and tricks and, something more personal? It depends on what you're comfortable with. But either way, if you're starting from ground zero, it's not going to be amazing when you start, but every little piece of content you share, every little caption you write, every little post that you put out there is a learning opportunity. So look at it that way and be grateful that we have these opportunities to put ourselves out there, because 15 years ago, you would have had to go to, try to get on your local radio station or pay to be on a local TV station spot, or, cross your fingers that people are going to know about you and your book through word of mouth, because we didn't have the same opportunities that we did back then. And then the last thing is to just try new things. Research methods that make sense for you. Don't be afraid to try, test, fail, succeed, try again, fail again, and repeat. Marketing is a long game. It's not always and not often does it provide instant results. But if you've written this book, it is part of the process, and it's not the end of the story once your book is just officially live and available on Amazon. It's actually just the beginning. So keep going. Always approach this with a mindset of learning. Try not to get overwhelmed, but to just pick one or two things to start with. And as you get comfortable and as you get your feet wet, you can add new things, investigate new things, research, Google search marketing strategies for self-published authors. Connect and build relationships with people in your network that you have now and the growing network that you're building. And this is how you will start to have other doors opening for you. But none of those doors can even show themselves if you don't put yourself out there to begin with. Hopefully this is helpful. A lot about marketing, I know. I don't want to overwhelm you. However, it is really smart to start considering what your plan will be for marketing moving forward, depending on what your goals are as an author. So that's it. Start your homework, create your ideal client, ideal reader profile avatar, pick a social media platform, and start thinking about what kinds of content that you can put out that is value add, more information about the topics inside your book that connects with people, that lets people get to know you as the author. And then you can consider other marketing techniques and strategies as you get more comfortable with each of those things.